Hola, peregrinos. Today we're going to talk about where you would sleep on the Camino, Donde Dormir. And there is a blog post on this if you'd like to read it and get a little more information. It has photos on it, which you might find really helpful. Years ago, when I first walked the Camino, there weren't as many choices as there are now. Now you have so many choices, and even earlier, like 30, 40, 50 years ago, there were almost no choices. People would sleep either in the parochials, in the church, or they might sleep in a haystack. They might sleep in an abandoned house. Yeah, you didn't have as many choices. Today, we're really lucky. So let me just go through these really quickly. There is a blog that will have more information and even some photos, but for people that don't like to read a blog, I thought I'd do a quick video. The first place is a parochial. The parochials are run by the Catholic Church. They generally do not take reservations. It's first come, first serve. You will almost always sleep on comfortable floor mats. They look like wrestling mats. That's the best way to describe them, or thick yoga mats, but bigger. There'll be other pilgrims right up next to you. You will need a sleep sack or a sleeping bag, as no sheets are provided. Some will have pillows, some will not. You may want to take your own pillowcase and just roll up a jacket or a shirt as a pillow. But don't miss the experience, because these are pretty sweet places to stay. They often will have a program in the evening done by either nuns or priests, and sometimes there'll be a pilgrim's mass at night. They'll almost always have a family-style meal. Now that's pre-COVID, and hopefully after COVID they'll start doing it again. Right now I know some of them are not doing that. Some parochials do have bunk beds, but most don't. Some have separate rooms for men and women, but most don't anymore. Sometimes you'll eat with the priest. There's usually a shower. It's not always hot, and it may or may not be co-ed. The Pilgrim's Mass, or the tour of the church, is really something special, and at least one of the parochials will take you on a tour of a chapel built into the rock up on the hill. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to enter it. So parochials are pretty cool places. They're almost always donativo, which does not mean free, by the way. Remember, you can pay what you can afford, but try to think about what it would cost you if you rented a room and had a meal in another place, and then give a generous donation. They depend upon your donations mostly to feed the pilgrims for the next night. So if you're having bread and water for dinner tonight, it means there were some stingy dang pilgrims the night before. Leave a generous donation. Think about what it would cost you for a meal, and leave a good donation. And I've given examples of donations in other videos. They do have utilities to pay for, cleaning supplies, things like that. So be generous. So those are parochials run by the church and usually donativo. The next step up would be a municipal albergue. These are run by the village government. They almost never take reservations, although that is slowly changing. You'll most likely sleep in bunk beds that could be nice and clean or saggy and old. There can be anywhere from 2 in places like Cacabelos. I'm trying to think of other places where there's only 2 beds. Azofra, I think. Or there might be 100, like Osabrera, which I really don't like Osabrera. Or Roncesvalles, where there's over 100 in the room. Sheets are on the mattresses. They're not always washed more than once a week. So if you're picky, you're going to want to take a sleep sack. You're always going to want to take either a sleep sack or a sleeping bag if you are staying in parochials and municipals. Sometimes they'll give you a paper sheet when you register. They're doing that more during COVID. Before, that was mostly up in Galicia. Pillows are sometimes provided, but not always, but they may not have pillowcases. So again, you may want to take your own. Blankets used to always be provided, but not anymore, since there's a big bed bug problem along the Camino growing. So a lot of them won't provide blankets anymore. Sometimes they'll have a kitchen where you can cook, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes the kitchen will have pots and pans and plates and forks and knives, but sometimes not. I've noticed in Galicia, if there's a kitchen, they almost always don't have cooking equipment, and that's not because they didn't supply it. That's because pilgrims have stolen it over time, and they've just decided not to replace it, and you can't blame them. Prices in the albergue are set by the village in the municipals, and they're the lowest except for parochials. There's almost always a shower. It could be communal or could have separate spaces for men and women. It may or may not have a shower curtain. So if you're shy, you can shower in your underwear or skip your shower that night. Most have internet these days, although some don't. Lockers are not usually provided, although they are in some. I know in Roncesvalles they do provide lockers, and in Loraño. In Roncesvalles, by the way, you'll need a €1 coin to use the locker, and you'll get that back when you return the key. But be sure you take a €1 coin with you. And again, never leave anything of value that you can't afford to lose in any of those lockers because they're not that secure. So above that then, the next step up would be private albergues. These are privately owned and run. Almost all of them will take reservations. Some have bunk beds, some have twin beds, some have dorms, some have private rooms. Some are en suite with private bathrooms, and in most you will share a bathroom. Sharing a bathroom is really common in Spain. When you share a bathroom in a private albergue, the bathroom door locks, so you have privacy while you're in there, but you're expected to clean up after yourself. Nobody's going to go in behind you and clean up. So after you shower and clean up, please leave it clean. Pick up the hair out of the drain and rinse everything out. Pick up your paper trash. Don't leave things laying around. Pick up your towel. Just be an adult. Nobody should have to tell you how to clean up after yourself. You're paying such a minimum amount of money for these places. It's different than staying in a 5-star hotel where you're paying $200 or $300 a night. Okay, then if you want to throw your towel on the floor, do it. But don't do it in these privates. Be an adult. Let's see what else. Some private albergues often offer a kitchen. Some don't. Lockers are generally not provided, although some are. So you never know. You have to ask these questions when you book. Most of them will have internet these days. Some will have a washing machine. And by the way, the parochials almost never will have a washing machine. The municipals will sometime, but some still have the old-time cold water washing stations where there's like a built-in concrete scrub board and you hang your clothes on the line. A tip, instead of taking clothespins, take giant diaper pins or giant size pins to hang your clothes with. It's easier, or it's less easy for someone to snag your stuff off the line. It's also less easy for the wind to blow it away. When you're shopping for a room, be sure to specify if you want 2 twin beds, because sometimes it'll be a double room, but it'll also be a double bed. They call it a matrimonial. We call it a double bed in the USA. It's a bed big enough for 2 people to sleep side by side, but it's not a queen and it's not twins. So if you want twins, you have to specify. Okay, the next step up is a hostel. A hostel in Spain is the same as a hostel in the USA. They all take reservations. There will be dorm rooms with a varying number of beds. There may or may not be private rooms offered. There's almost always a kitchen where you can cook your own food. There's usually a refrigerator. Mark your food if you don't want other people taking it, and please don't take other people's food. Lockers are often provided, but you may need to provide your own lock in those. Most places do have internet. Apartments. Apartamentos are a great option if you're a group of people of 3 or more. Often you can get an apartment and 3 people can spend less money than they would in an albergue where you're having to sleep with 50 other pilgrims. And many villages now do offer apartments. They all take reservations. A lot of them will have 2 or 3 bedrooms, and in addition, they will have like a futon in the living room or a hide-a-bed in the living room. Some rooms will have twin beds. Some will have a matrimonial. You have to ask. But if 3, 4, 5, up to 8 people can get together and split the cost, you can really stay in a nice apartment for less money than you pay in an albergue and have a much quieter, more private experience. Most apartments will have 2 bathrooms. Most will have a washing machine. Almost all will have a kitchen where you can cook for yourself and save some money. Almost all will have internet. So that's a really good option if you meet a group of people or if you're traveling in a group. Another good option is when you're in an albergue to get a triple or a quad room if you're a group of people staying together. You can pay less money and only sleep with 4 people in the room instead of 50 or 100. Camping, whether or not camping is legal, it's always a debate on the internet. I camp all the time on the Camino. My experience is many albergues will let you camp out in their yard. They will at Roncesvalles, they will at Zubiri. Maybe not in the big cities, but in the smaller villages, almost always they will if you ask. They may or may not charge you the price of the albergue. If you're going to use the shower and kitchen, you can ask. But I have a whole blog on camping, and so if you're interested in that, you should go to my blogs and do a search on camping and read what I say there. People say you can't camp along the Camino, but that's baloney. You can camp along the Camino. You just have to be polite and ask if you're on private property. There are a lot of campsites along the Camino. It can be done, okay? So do a search on my blog. There are casa rurals, which are another option, a really nice option for people. These are houses owned by private people. They all take reservations. Sometimes they'll rent out the whole house to you, and sometimes just a room or two. The owners almost always live on site or really close by, and this is a wonderful option for groups of pilgrims who are willing to split the cost. Some of the houses are just beautiful. They're hundreds of years old. Some have internet, some don't. Ask if it's important to you. I find casa rurals on booking.com, and there are other places where you can rent rooms in casa rurals. The last option that I want to mention are habitaciones. Habitaciones, rooms to rent. So if you're walking down a street, you'll see a sign up there. It'll say Habitaciones. What that means is someone has a private home, and in that home or apartment, they have a room, and they want to rent out the room. It may be really, really expensive, or it may be really, really cheap. And the thing to do is ring the doorbell or knock on the door, ask to see the room, ask how much it costs, and then make a decision. These can be a real good place to stay. You can save a lot of money. Usually you cannot use the kitchen. Sometimes you'll share a bathroom. Sometimes you'll have your private bathroom. It just depends. Everyone is different, but this is a really good option. There is a sign on my blog, Donde Dormir, that shows you, they'll advertise by different words. They'll say habitaciones, zimmers, rooms. They use different words, but you'll get it when you see it. You'll know that it's a room for rent. A habitacion is a good option if you're walking alone. I've had some really nice experiences there and getting to know the people. Sometimes there'll be a grandma and she'll want to cook for you and offer a meal for a little price. It can be a really good option, so don't pass those by. Another option for sleeping are hotels, and hotels in Spain are just like hotels here in the USA. They're on a star system. If you go to booking.com, you can find the ratings by comments. Are they like a 9.1 fantastic or a 7.2 okay? I always look at the ratings. I usually, when I'm picking for my groups, I want to always pick 8s or 9s. When I'm picking for myself, I might go down into the 7s because I don't care that much. Hotels are booked just like they're booked here in the USA, and they run anywhere from $25 for a hotel room all the way up to the hundreds of dollars. They can be a really nice break for you. After you walk for 10 or 12 days, it's nice to get to a hotel that has a nice hot shower, a nice clean bed, a quiet room. It can make or break your Camino to have a rest day now and then in a good hotel. One time we got to Santo Domingo del Calzada. This is in the very early days of my Caminoing, and I was very sick. I had a bad cold. I was tired. I was freezing. It was raining. And the albergue where we were, this is when the old albergue was there before they built the new one, and you waited outside in almost like a barn, and it was very cold, and they weren't opening till 4 in the evening, and I was just freezing. And I asked Joe if he'd go look for another place to stay. And while he was out, I just got tired of waiting, and I went across the street, and I booked a room at the Parador. And I didn't care what it cost. I just gave them my credit card, and got this wonderful room with a big bathtub where I got a hot bath and I got breakfast in bed. And it was just the best night ever. I think I took 3 or 4 hot baths that night. When I got back home, I got the bill, and I was very surprised to see I had paid about $350 for that room that night, which would have taken me for days and days and days on the Camino. But it was worth it. That was a good night, and I got a lot of good rest, and I was happy to do it. So hotels are always another option, and those are just like booking here. Get online and look at on your favorite booking site. I like booking.com. I talk about it a lot, and I've used it for years, but there are other booking sites. So hotels, don't forget about those. Wherever you decide to stay, please use good manners. Clean up after yourself. That's really the biggest thing, especially in a shared bathroom or in the albergues. Uh, whether they're parochial, municipal, private, if you're sharing bathrooms, clean up after yourself. Be an adult. That's the biggest thing. Don't leave your crap laying around, okay? Same thing in the kitchen. Wash your dishes, dry them, put them away, wipe off the counters and the tables. And if you go into a place and it's dirty, spend a little time cleaning it up, all right? It's good karma for you. So, Donde Dormir? It's up to you. There are a lot of options, a lot of places you can stay. Try them all out and decide what works best for you. Okay, that's it for today. I hope this has been helpful. By the way, there is a Facebook group that you can get on if you haven't heard of it already. It's called 2022 Camino Santiago Planning Group, and there's a lot of really good information that'll help you plan your Camino there. Have a buen Camino. Until next time.